Christian discipleship is total surrender to God in faith, for disappointments are God's appointments with us. Once, an officer who lived in the south had reserved his ticket by train for an important meeting in a neighboring town. He had an appointment with a senior officer and had to be there on time. As he was moving to the railway station, he found that the traffic was very slow and he feared that he would miss the train. He prayed, "Lord, help me that I may not miss the train." It was an important meeting and he did not want to miss it. But unfortunately, by the time he reached the station, the train had already left. Naturally, he was disappointed. The first thought that came to his mind was that the Lord did not hear his prayer. But he did not want to lose faith, so he sat on a bench in the railway station and prayed for an increase in faith. As he was sitting there on the bench, another person, also looking a bit desperate, took his seat on the same bench. The other gentleman also had missed the train and was supposed to travel to the same destination as this officer. They began talking to each other and they became friends. Within a short while, the officer was pleasantly surprised to find that the person talking to him on the bench was the senior officer he was scheduled to meet in the neighboring town that day. His disappointment had become another appointment with his boss. Our disappointments are God's appointments with us. What is important is that we do not lose faith in our pain and suffering, but hold fast to Him in commitment. Disappointments, pain, and loss are part and parcel of human life. In the book of Job, chapter 7, verse 1, we read, Job spoke, saying, "Has not man a hard service on earth, and are not his days like the days of a hired hand?" In the midst of his long suffering, Job speaks of the futility of life, and he describes the miseries of human existence. The book of Job is a long didactic poem which does not agree with the ancient Jewish belief that God rewards the good and punishes the wicked in this life. God is permitting Satan to test the commitment of his servant Job. A prosperous and God-fearing man, Job, suddenly experienced the successive catastrophic losses of wealth, family, and health. Job eventually realizes that those who choose to give themselves to God will find that life has a meaning. Modern psychology also teaches us that it is only our totally free actions that bring us real fulfillment in life. If our life is filled with drudgery and our days are without hope, it may be because we have never dared to go beyond the security of other people's approval and acceptance. Jesus shows us that we can reach perfection only by allowing the risk of suffering into our lives and submitting ourselves to God's wisdom and His loving will in all things. The Lord challenges us today to go courageously beyond people's expectations by doing good as Jesus did. There is no use of brooding over all the pain and suffering in the world that we cannot end. In the Gospel according to St. Mark chapter 1 verse 29 onwards, Jesus enters the house of Simon and heals his mother-in-law. And immediately she serves him. In the Gospel according to St. Mark chapter 1 verse 31 we read, "The fever left her and she waited on them." True discipleship means getting involved in giving selfless service to others. Jesus' first day of public ministry at Capernaum was a Sabbath day. During the day he had taken part in the synagogue worship, taught with authority, exorcised a demon, and healed Simon's mother-in-law. After all that, when the sun had set, he cured many who were sick with various diseases and drove out many demons. Yet he was very well aware that his work can be effective only in union with his Father. Hence, Jesus rose very early in the next morning, went off to a deserted place to pray in order to assess his work for his Father's glory. In the first letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians, chapter 9, verse 16, we read, "Woe to me if I do not preach the gospel." Paul emphasizes that giving up his legitimate rights for the sake of a higher ideal gave him true freedom. He could remain respectful of others but never patronizing. Like Jeremiah, Paul saw his preaching not merely as a job but as a divine commission, a vocation. Paul's freedom to serve was rooted in the free choices he had made as a preacher of the gospel. Discipleship is total acceptance and surrender to God's will in faith, for disappointments are God's appointments with us. Bringing healing and wholeness in a broken world is Jesus' ministry even today. We are called not to brood over our sufferings in sorrow, but look at it as a means of our sanctification. By uniting ourselves to God in prayer, we too can find meaning in suffering. As Christians and good disciples, we are also called to alleviate suffering and pain from the lives of others by our acts of service. Let us proclaim with the psalmist, "Praise the Lord who heals the broken-hearted."